Good evening. Once again, I thank you for joining the collective here on WSME Enlightenment Radio. And right now, I'm broadcasting live on Facebook, not only to my collective page, or the page titled The Collective, which is the name of the show, but my Michelle Turner page. So please take a listen because this one is a very important show. Basically, we're talking tonight with Katurah Bryant, and she is the creator of the Zola experience. Okay, can you see it? This is where I need Doc because I need better lighting when I do something like this. But let me tell you a little bit about our guest tonight. Katurah A. Bryant is a published author, creator, and founder of the Zola experience, a journey of recovery from loss. Ms. Bryant has contributed to the fields of health, wellness, and recovery with credentials as a licensed marriage and family therapist, registered nurse, and a licensed addictions specialist with over 30 years of experience. A native of Nashville, Tennessee, and currently residing in New Haven, Connecticut, Ms. Bryant has put together a book for us to follow when we are dealing with grief, and she put together the Zola Journal, a journal journey for life. So we welcome to the collective Katurah Bryant.
Peace
Hello
and
there.
blessings.
How are you?
I am wonderful, blessed, and just grateful to be here. You know how that goes in this day and
Yes,
time.
in this day and time, indeed. I think we all need to be thankful for being here.
Yes.
So, the Zola experience. First of all, I noticed on the journal, and you explain, we've got quite a few butterflies.
Yes.
And you've got one on your shoulder and
Yes.
in the background.
Yes.
So, talk about how that relates to the experience.
Well, I first of all, I love butterflies in the way that they are formed, how the creator made them. They start off as a larvae and then they come out as caterpillars. And caterpillars, they eat like, 4 times their weight in food. And then they go into the cocoon or the chrysalis. And basically, what happens to them then is that they totally liquefy, almost down to the DNA. All right. And then it all coalesces together again, and the butterfly makes its way out of that cocoon and it flies. And you can't help the butterfly come out of the cocoon. You support it by allowing it to do its own thing. Because if
Mhm.
you pull it out, it'll die. Because
Right.
the wings won't get the blood and won't get the nourishment, won't get strong like it needs to be. So it was a divine intervention that I chose the butterfly as my logo for this experience that I am having. I consider it a divine experience that I am having to do this work. And as you noted, I've been doing work with individuals and families and communities around recovery from many, many different types of losses, all of my career and basically
Mhm.
most of my life. So that's where we came with the butterflies.
So, did you start out in substance abuse recovery first, or did you start out as a nurse? Give us a little background on Katurah.
Well, I it's interesting when you talk about a nursing degree. A nursing degree is like a physician's education. It's very broad. You get exposed to a number of different types of services.
Mhm.
By the time I graduated from UConn, I was real clear that I wasn't a med surg kind of nurse. I found my niche in psychiatry and in community health. And so when I had those rotations, it felt like I had reached nirvana. Okay.
Mm.
So My first job, actually, I after I graduated from UConn, I went back to Nashville, Tennessee, and I worked at Meharry Medical College.
Oh my
Oh
goodness.
my God, that was like, it was my HBCU experience. I am
I was getting ready to say if that was totally different from being at UConn.
Yes. And when I sat down at my first staff meeting, and I was a graduate nurse, and I was working in their addictions unit. They had two sides. One side was the mental health side, the other side was the addiction unit. And they hired me as a charge nurse, graduate nurse on the addiction unit. And I fell in love. It was like, okay, I like this.
Mm-hmm.
My first staff meeting, when I saw all of those black and brown faces, physicians, psychologists, social workers, nurses, I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm talking about. And so I was really kind of hooked at that point in time. And then I came back to the East Coast and I got married. We came to New Haven. I worked as a school nurse for for about 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
I was at St. Martin de Porres and I was
Mm-hmm.
at Lincoln Bassett. And I also did what we at that time were well baby clinics. And we would
Oh.
do that. And I was a Head Start nurse for a minute. I love community health. And I did work in med surge for about a year. And it was like, somebody, please just relieve me of my pain. And people say the same thing to me when I talk to them about my journey in working with people with co-occurring and addictive disorders. And
Mm-hmm.
I got my second job basically in purely focused on addiction and recovery was when I worked at the VA hospital in West Haven, and I worked on their addiction unit, and it was like I was in love once again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I really knew that I wanted to do more family therapy work, was when I was at the VA in West Haven. And we had to do multiple family groups. And I was like, this is how healthcare is supposed to be. This is how treatment is supposed to be. And then, worked at a place that probably no longer exists, Shirley Frank Foundation,
Mm.
worked at YPI, an adolescent psych for a minute. And then the rest of my career, God blessed me to get a job at Connecticut Mental Health Center. And I worked in the addictions unit my entire tenure there. My last 3 years, I worked there as well as at central office in Demas. I worked out of the Office of Multicultural Affairs in
Mm-hmm.
Demas, which is now Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And I'm at the pleasure of the commissioner at the time, and um, Dr. Rittman, and I absolutely loved every minute of what I did. I had no real desire to retire. It was truly a God thing. I could have, I could probably still be doing that. I loved it every day. I mean, like any job, you have your issues and,
Right.
you know, but as far as my heart and my spirit, I tried to be creative. I introduced the ear acupuncture program to the center and to Demas. And, I ran multiple couples groups, families groups. I got my graduate school education through the Connecticut Mental Health Center, through the Department of Mental Health. And I drank that up for 3.5, then had the nerve to go back for a postgraduate year to become certified in Gestalt therapy. And so I've done a bunch of things that I believe that I loved. And I think the other thing that is so people think is not interrelated to this,
Uh-huh.
I my then husband and I, we sold fish in New Haven for about 5 or 6 years
Uh-huh.
while I was, having children, and it was a self-employment thing. But I incorporated health education even in that. I would have fish parties, and
Mm.
I would go to people's houses, or they would come to mine, and I would talk to them about the benefits of eating more fish in their diet, and the impact of obesity and all of those things. And so I've done a lot of pro bonos at churches and at different organizations. I would just go and share the wealth of my knowledge. So, but I always, try to just take it a little step further. So,
So when you retired,
We'll put that in quotes, Michelle.
Yeah, that just means you're not going to the same place every day, pretty much.
Exactly. Please excuse me.
What what was it that motivated you to say, I need to put together this experience?
Well, I think, sometimes the creator gives you experiences that leads you to a place where you didn't think that you would go. So,
Right.
I have been working with, like I said, with loss and recovery and grief from loss all of my adult life. And during the 80s and 90s, when New Haven was just decimated with
Yeah.
street violence, and not that it's gone away, but it definitely isn't at the
It doesn't seem to be at the
intensity.
level, yeah, the intensity,
Exactly.
that's a good word,
Yeah,
that
that
it was
was back
then.
then. And it was like, well, what do families do? What do funeral homes, what do families do after that? And that always was on my spirit. And so I remember being at Mr. Cosby Marable's funeral. He was the principal at Lincoln Bassett when I was a school nurse, and he had
Mhm.
transitioned. And I was standing on the steps with Mr. Howard K. Hill, and I was like, Mr. Hill, what do you all do for
In
families
times
after
of
this?
grief, yeah.
Right. And he was like, well, not a whole lot. Why? Do you have an idea? And I said, I absolutely do. And he says, well, come talk to him. And so I came to him. I presented my curriculum to him, and then we made an arrangement, as a contractor. And that's how the first part of the Zola experience began.
Now, you just said you already had a curriculum written.
I did. I had been thinking about it. And so, there was that piece of like, how do I approach how do I approach it? Where should I go? Spirit just led me at that particular moment, said, look, just ask the question. So when I did, and then it was like, okay, I got this. And so I presented this curriculum to him, and he thought it was a great idea. We hashed some things out as far as trying to get people in the room, and what was it going to look like, and who was going to be the facilitators, and all of that. And we made it happen for about 4 years, and really just, made grief and loss an act of recovery, an act of love. Because recovery from grief and loss really is an act of love from your lost love object. And that's a, a
Now explain that. Define that, because I found that interesting, because it seems to me, and of course, I'm sure you'll let me know if I'm not on the right track, but it seems as if describing it as an object sort of takes away the personal connection, if you will,
Mhm,
with the person
mhm,
or whatever it is that you might be grieving.
mhm. Well, object in the sense that grief and loss happens to us all the time. So it's not just about a person. It's about body image. It's about secure housing. It's
Mhm.
about food insecurity. It is about not getting the promotion that you wanted. So in that sense, you're not objectifying anything, but an object is a thing. And what is this thing that you have lost?
Mm.
So the term came to me of a lost love object, because we hold on to objects.
Mhm.
We hold on to things, and things are objects. And so that's what gets us stuck. We hold on to it. We don't want to let it go. We got all these messages that are in our head particularly about moving on past a person, you know.
Yes.
But we also struggle with moving past, dealing with the body image change. We have women that have had mastectomies, and I have had family members. My own mother, she had a mastectomy, and it changed the whole energy in our house. It
Wow.
changed how she related to me, because up until that time, she the female body, it was like, my mother, myself, my sister, we could
Right.
all be in the bathroom at the same time. But as soon as she had that experience, I remember coming home from college and I was getting ready to go into the bathroom and the door was locked. It was like, and she could not get, she struggled with getting past it for a very, very long time. And it really wasn't until most recently when I was retired and was spending time with her that we actually had a conversation about it. But, but I also experienced a loss because I
Yeah.
experienced the loss of my relationship as I knew it with my mother.
And Katurah, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if it's common or privy to African American households that we do not discuss grief and loss.
We don't. And there's a segment in the book, The Zola Experience, that we talk about that. We talk about the family messages that you received about
Mm-hmm.
grief and loss. And I would say we are not alone in that. It crosses all cultures. And most cultures have a ritual around death of a person.
Yes.
Very few cultures, if any, have a ritual around loss of a body part or loss of your job or loss of your housing. But how do families talk about those things? Is it like, oh yeah, so and so lost his job, but nobody wants to mention that they lost their job?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But we have these unspoken rituals around most things. And whether the unspoken ritual is that we don't talk about it or that we're stoic about it, there's no emotion about it. But there is something that happens. One of the issues that we're dealing with now with COVID is rituals have been taken away.
Mm.
You don't
As we know them, yes.
know them. Funerals, even births. We don't have baby showers like we had them before. And that's a loss. So how do you connect? How do you do this? And this is really the energy behind the Zola experience. I mean, I stepped away from actually doing this for 4 years.
Why?
During that 4 years, I was taking care of a dying parent. And that's one of the stories that is in the second book, The Journal Journey. I was taking care of a mentally dying parent. My mother has advanced Alzheimer's. I was taking care of at one point in time, I was helping my sister who had an arm injury. She couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So I spent time doing that. I had a sudden loss of a sibling. I talked to my brother on his birthday, and the next day he was gone. So I experienced these things, and I'm not one, as you know me, I'm not one that won't lend voice to experiences.
Right.
And so, pushing my family, well, we need to talk about this stuff. We need to talk about this.
So did this lead to our second book?
Well, it led to the first book.
Okay.
I woke up, Spirit woke me up about 5 o'clock in the morning in May of 2020 and said, it's time for you to do Zola, and it's time for you to do it differently.
Now, Zola is an African word or expression for love.
It means to love.
So we don't necessarily think about grief and love in the same sphere.
But you behave in that way, though, with your tears, with your mourning. Why are you mourning that person? Because you care about that person. You love that person. So what would we talk about this as part of the process. What would that lost love object, there's a lesson that every lost love object teaches you. I've used this model for basically almost any and everything. People that, a woman came, she had lost her job and she couldn't get past it. She was still ruminating about the fact that, I lost my career, I lost my job. I'm doing this over here. I don't like it. I can't get it together. And so once we broke it down, had her go through the 7 steps, it was like, What was losing this job trying to teach you? Because life lessons are in everything.
Right.
Well, this
Very
job,
true.
this loss of the employment was, once she thought about it, it was like, okay, perhaps he was trying to teach me that I need to be more diligent about my paperwork, that
Hmm.
I need to be more verbal about my needs at work when I'm in a workspace. This is what I learned, and this is what I was not doing. Okay, then you have to really get honest with yourself. And once you come to the understand, then you go to a space of forgiveness of yourself, of whatever it is that was your piece in the loss.
Hmm.
And a lot of times people struggle with the fact that, could I have taken care of my mother better? Could I, why, if I hadn't have gone here, I would have been there when, if I hadn't gone to the bathroom, I would have been there when they took their last breath. If
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
But then when you break it all down, what does it come down to?
Yeah.
What does the
What does it
creator
mean?
what does the creator say? I'm in charge of life and death. Period. End of conversation. So no matter what you did, your intent was to be there, but that doesn't mean that you're a horrible person because you were not, and you weren't in charge of that. And so we really get people to take some time to just really kind of walk through a process. And it really prepares them perhaps for more therapy. But the beauty of it is, particularly for our community, to tell somebody to go to therapy, even though I'm a family therapist and Lord knows I'm a true advocate, they're like, not so fast. But they will go to a Zola healing circle.
But so let me understand. You just said not so fast for therapy. And
Mhm,
we're living in a time now, since or during this pandemic, since 2020, where we're starting to see African Americans go to therapy,
mhm,
specifically Black men go to
mhm.
therapy. So why not so fast?
Because we carry those cultural messages. And the problem being is that oftentimes they're not walking into a situation where it could be it's a two-sided coin, walking into a situation seeing a face that looks like them,
Mm,
and because don't wear your dirty laundry,
right,
this person lives
right,
in your community, they may,
right.
divulge your stuff. And then the other side of it, they see a person that's sitting across from them that doesn't look like them.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, can I trust? Both of
Right.
them is an
Okay.
act of trust.
Right.
So, we're in that space where I think telehealth, because it's a little bit um, uh, away, it's not as personal because you're not in the same room with another
Right.
human being.
Right.
Um, that might, be something, that could be helpful. I think that, there's nothing like that in person thing because there's so much stuff that goes on.
Right.
The body language, I look at I'm observant of things. And so, you can't see if I'm wringing my hands.
Right.
You can't see if I'm fidgeting with my feet. You can't see a lot of things that I may, a- you know,
That show
highlight.
anxiety or uncomfort or
Exactly.
those sort of things that you can read when you're sitting with someone face to
Mhm.
face.
Exactly.
I understand that. All right, we're going to take a quick break,
Okay.
but I want to let people know again that we are discussing the Zola experience. I have in my studio today virtually Ms. Katurah Bryant. She is a published author, creator, and founder of the Zola Experience, a journey of recovery from loss. She's contributed to the fields of health, wellness, and recovery with credentials as a licensed marriage and family therapist, registered nurse, and licensed addictions specialist with over 30 years of experience. Girl, you look really good.
Thank you, my sister.
Zola Experience. And we're going to come back and talk about the journal in a few seconds. This is The Collective right here on WSME Enlightenment Radio. Hold on. We have lots more coming at you. You got a good 20 more minutes, 25 minutes of information. Back after the quick break with Katurah Bryant, the creator, the founder of the Zola experience. Now, one of the things that I noticed in this book was that in a group setting, you put up a timeline around the room, which I thought was very ingenious. And with people dealing with their grief, you have them first put up the first experience they've had with grief, then the next time, then the next time, and then whatever is current. And then you say to them, where are you now? Are you still in the first? Are you still in the second? Or are you still in the recent? What kind of response do you usually get in that type of situation? Do you see shock? Do you see that people are still holding on? I'm sure you do, to that past grief. But for me, in reading that and thinking about it, visualizing it, I was like, I never thought about it that way before.
Well, like I say, we experience loss of a number of things throughout our lifespan. And we perhaps are, the whole purpose of the exercise is for people to highlight for them what support systems have they used in order for them to get from the first significant loss to where they are today. And to be able to share that with somebody that has had a recent loss. A person that, let's say, their first significant loss was when they were 2, and this most recent loss is when they're 32. Right. But what are those things that helped you to get to 32? And maybe you can talk to the person that's 17, right? And they're like, this is new for them. Yeah. Or you talk to that person that's 50 and has just experienced their first loss, and you're 30, right? And so there is the whole purpose of that first session is for people to understand there's a wealth of support in that room. There's a wealth of knowledge in that room about how to get through this to the next phase of your life. So that is the very beginning of the group coming together, coalescing, and beginning to start a group identity. So that is your first session. And then your second session, we talk about your spiritual growth, your spiritual walk. And I say your spiritual walk or your philosophy of life, because there's some people that say, look, I ain't with that spiritual thing.
Right.
And so in the training, we talk about using different phrases that you
and how that spiritual walk, how are you dealing with grief in your spiritual walk, right?
Exactly. How has your spiritual walk impacted your recovery from grief and loss? You know, some people, if it depends on their orientation, and they talk about it. And some people are real honest and say, well, I'm angry with the power, the higher power that I call God, or I've walked away from it because I love this job, this person. I don't understand why this happened to me. And we work with that. And then this third thing we talk about is, what are the messages from your family of origin? And what are the messages around self-care? See?
Because that's big in all of this, right?
Absolutely. We talk about self-care before we even get started. We say you need to do your self-care. You need to take care of yourself. You know how much you can self-disclose, how comfortable you are with self-disclosure. There is no have-tos in the experience. The person can sit there and not say anything for the entire 7 sessions, if that's where their comfort level is.
Yeah.
We talk about self-care. We talk about messages from their family of origin. We also give people suggestions on things that they can do to take care of themselves, from auricular ear acupuncture to taking meditative walks.
I like the fact that you incorporated breathing into this.
Very important.
Because I think that's definitely something that we have been so far removed from as a community.
Mm-hmm.
It is not usual. It is not a usual space for us.
Right.
So, can you walk us through a little bit of what that breathing does? Even though I read it in the book.
Well, the breathing, first of all, it oxygenates your blood. It gives you, and the breathing exercise is really, really simple. It only takes about a minute of filling the lungs as much as you can, and exhaling very slowly through pursed lips. We usually do a count of 4 inhale, a count of 8 to exhale, and to exhale as much of the air in your lungs as you can. And we ask you to push just a little bit more out. And that way you will expand the lungs, and you'll be able to bring even more in. And then we do that, and then bring it more in, and then we exhale. And that takes about a minute. That's something that an individual can do, at work if they start to feel anxious. They can do it in the middle of an exam if they get blocked.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that they can do. But you're absolutely right. As a people, we have been like this.
Right.
Since we were kidnapped.
Right.
And
taking that journey.
Right.
And survive the journey, for the ones that survive the journey.
Exactly. We have not given ourselves permission to exhale. So the breathing, there's a couple of breathing exercises that are in there. I also do tapping.
Yes, that was my next conversation, because I found that interesting.
Yeah, tapping is,
and I did it.
Good, Michelle.
But I gotta live it to talk about it, right?
That's right.
In certain instances.
Right. And so I do the tapping thing.
Yes.
We do that. We do the breathing. I encourage meditative walks. I encourage just sitting silent. No electronics, no nothing. Mm-hmm. And those things don't cost you anything.
Right.
I say find your happy place where you can just sit and be. Mine, I love the beach. So I have this little spot down at the end of the West Haven Beach. It's in Milford. It's crossing that it's like a nursing home or extended living home, and there's like there's a bench down at the bottom. That's my spot. I go there, and I would sit there and breathe in that salt air and just sit there for a long, long time. So find your happy place.
And that's important too, because I think for so many of us, I'm not so much in that environment now, but for a very long time, I was around an environment that engaged noise. If there was not, and I'm going to tell on myself a little bit, if there was not a scanner, Associated Press machine, the radio station playing above my head, 3 TVs on 3 different radio, 3 TVs on 3 different stations. So I had all this noise. And I even got to the point, and I'm still trying to break away from the habit, but I got to the point where I would get home and I'd still have to have some noise. So when someone actually said to me, "Have you ever sat in silence?" I was like, "No."
Like, what is that?
I can't even imagine. What are you talking about? If there's silence in my world, my working professional world, that means something's wrong. Something's not working. Something's unplugged. Something's, got a short. Something's wrong. And so to apply that to myself.
It is rejuvenating, though.
It was. I found it. Yeah. To kind of like, okay, I'm at a stage where I can actually cut this off.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing.
Yeah. But I tell people to do it in stages. You know, let's try it for 2 minutes. Let's try it for 2 minutes. Then let's try it for 3. And build yourself up to like 15 minutes. If you can sit and be still and just be conscious of your breathing in and out, just be conscious of your breath for 15 minutes.
And nothing else.
And nothing else, it will do wonders for your body. It truly, truly will. So, you know, and then we talk about just, you know, another session is around writing a letter to your lost love object. And then then we get into forgiveness. And then we get into, you know, creating some of a legacy in reference to your lost love object.
And I thought that was interesting. Yeah, I thought that was interesting because I think in your grief, you're missing people and you don't move beyond the missing when it comes to people. Or it could be you're missing your job, yes, because your identity is attached to your job. So in that respect, I think it seems to me that people are wrapped in their grief and they don't think about how they can honor whatever it is. And that's a stage of moving on.
And honoring it doesn't, I mean, if your lost love object really was something that was negative, that had a negative impact, that doesn't mean that you are honoring that incident. It means that you are honoring yourself moving past it. So, you know, I've had people that felt like they got wrongfully fired from a job, right? And they were, and so it was not like I want to create a legacy for the job.
Right.
Their legacy was that they committed to every year spending a day at the spa doing self-care. Then there's people that, you know, the person's had lost their significant other, their wife, and they had a garden, and they had allowed the garden to just get overgrown over the last 3 or 4 years that they couldn't get past things. And their legacy was, I'm going to revive my wife's garden. And at that point in time, then they were able to be open to other relationships and be able to move on. Or, you know, some people have done, you know, 5K runs, or midnight basketball, or decide to do big time scholarships or whatever. But, you know, however way that you feel like that you will, this is your legacy of letting go. It's a legacy of letting go so you can move on, move forward in your life. And then the last is that, you know, we always give the cohort, they come up with a name for themselves. It's Zola Riders. We've had
sounds like a good t-shirt.
Yes. We've had Zola Podners, because they felt that they were in this pod, this like cocoon, and they were coming out of it. Loquacious Zolas, because this group, I swear to God, they talked. Everybody talked. There was no silence in that group. So they came up with their own name. It's like Loquacious Zolas. So, but that gives them a sense of community. It gives them a sense of identity. And so that you have now created another layer of support for yourself, so that you're walking around in the community and you say, Michelle, that's my Loquacious Zola sister. You know what I'm saying? And so you connect. And that's so important for us as a community of people. We do that. We come together. And so when you can come together from a healing space, it is so beautiful.
Well, you know, I think too, we are a community of identifiers, right? When I was a younger woman, and even when I went into the so-called professional world, the way that I was sort of taught to recognize somebody who had the same, how can I say, values about being African American was the size of their earrings.
Oh, okay.
And so if a sister had on hoops, the bigger the hoop, the more involved she was probably in her community or her self-worth or, that sort of thing. The
Wow.
smaller the hoop, then it was like, and I got on babies right now, but the smaller the hoop was like, gotta talk to you a little bit more and see where you are and everything, and 9 times out of 10 for me, it became this thing, and I kind of felt like I could be more at home with that person
Mm,
because there was some kind of community that we
mhm.
had, some
Absolutely.
collaborative spirit,
Yes.
you know. So I think we are a community of identifiers, and
Mhm.
we do well when we can identify with one another.
Mhm.
It makes it easier to collaborate.
Mhm. And then when we bring, like, at the end of this year, we're going to have just a gathering, on Zoom, because there's healing circles going on in Minnesota and North
Mhm.
Carolina and Seattle and New Haven. And so we're just going to bring ambassadors, who are those individuals that go through the training to facilitate that group, and those people that participated in the group. And each group gets has an identifying name, whether you're an ambassador or whether you've participated in the healing circle. So, but it's important to bring all that energy together and
Mhm.
just really kind of touch base how people are doing and celebrate their journey. Just celebrate the journey. It's a that's
So you've taken this around the country then.
yes, it's been. I'm telling you, this has been a plus of our virtual world now.
Mhm.
So I started my first Zola ambassador training in January of this year, and it was anybody can come on, no matter where you live globally.
Mhm.
We've had people express interest in the Philippines and in Thailand, and so that's really my divine mission, is to have Zola circles globally and ambassadors all over the world. And so so I haven't been doing this for a real long time,
Mhm.
and God had me to write this book in a language that any and everybody can understand, and as I walk you through it, and we do the coaching around it, that anybody can do it. So if you are a community engager, if you are a clinician, please contact me, and let's become a Zola ambassador. It will enhance your practice. It will enhance the work that you're doing.
The journal journey for life.
Yes.
I love this journal because you really do give space. You give the person not only time to reflect, but there's no end to, there's no lines on pages. So that leads me to believe that if you are journaling, because I think sometimes with particular journals, when you have lines, you don't think about colors or drawing or expressing yourself in a different way outside of writing.
Mm-hmm.
This journal gives you the opportunity to do that because there are pages with quotes so you can reflect. I
Mm-hmm.
know this is kind of hard to see because of light,
Yeah.
but for instance, there's one proverb: silence is also speech, which is what we just talked about. And then across from it on page 112, that was page 113. On this day, I will take 5 minutes to make a list of some of my good traits, strengths, and abilities.
Right.
So I think what it gives is direction, but at the same time, it allows you to think without saying, okay, on page 35, you need to write down 5, whatever's.
Right.
No, we have a quote for you. And wherever that quote takes you, you can either reflect it on this page or you can write down whatever you're feeling in that moment.
Exactly. I wrote this for the seasoned journaler, and I wrote it for the novice journaler, somebody that's just deciding that this is what they think they would like to venture into. And there's pictures that you can also reflect on, and the vignettes, the short stories that you can reflect on, that I have life lessons and things for you to ponder. So if you are new at journaling, I know for myself, a lot of people say, well, I never got into journaling because, I would see those blank pages and that would just make me too anxious, right? So there's those quotes at the bottom, like you said, that will stimulate that, or not. You can just keep writing. I have those little short stories in there that give you things to think about. And then we have pictures in there.
And the butterfly pages are absolutely beautiful.
Yes, that gives you things to think about. And there's the artwork in here. It's like, some of it is a family affair. The artwork here, that was done by my son, and they're throughout the book, Akil, and he's such a gifted artist. And I just gave him like those pictures are also in the first Zola book, and I just gave him, this is what I want to convey, and this is what he came up with, all of those, and they are beautiful, and I am grateful. And
I think one of my most favorite quotes in this journal is, "What you think is what you get."
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be at a certain level of wisdom to understand that. It's almost like the old song and Flip Wilson, right? What you see is what you get.
That's right.
So that doesn't take much to imagine. It kind of says, okay, if this is what you see, this is what it is. There's no in between, or there's no deception.
Right.
It is what you're seeing.
Yeah. And what I always ask people, okay, well, what is your reality? You know what I'm saying? What is real right now? You're talking about this, that, and the other thing, and it's like, but what is your reality?
Right.
What is it that you have to deal with, like right now, today? So a lot of the short stories are just some of it is my own life experience in those short stories. Some of them are a compilation of things that happened while I was in therapy with different people. And so I just think that men as well as women, I think, will get benefit out of the journal Journey for Life. And it is a book. It's not just a journal. So I'm not putting it out there as just a journal, because it's much more than a journal. And I'm praying that people will embrace it and go get it and be like my butterfly, my girl. You see my girl?
Yes.
The black butterfly, she has taken flight from this book.
Yes.
And she's taking people with her.
Yes.
And her fellow butterflies with her. So yeah.
And I know you've had some men in these groups. What seems to be their takeaway?
This is an interesting thing. There's the third session in what we do. We split the group. We put those individuals that identify as female and those individuals that identify as male, and we split the group, and we have them talk about their coping skills and their messages, and the reason that I did that, and that is part of it. If you don't have a homogeneous group, is because we there needs to be some privacy that, there are things that women may do that are privy to women, and there's things
Mm,
that men do that are privy in common for men, and that then I can support you.
right.
And in Seattle, they have started their male healing groups, their male
Hmm,
Zola healing groups, and they have been powerful. And I'm hoping that, we can connect with, I know there's a couple of men's groups in New Haven. I'm hoping that
mhm.
I can connect with them and, give them this curriculum, and hopefully it will enhance the work that they're doing. Above and beyond just bringing folks together and just kind of having a free association conversation to give some structure to the conversation to help them to move along. We have all women's groups. We've had, um, you know, yeah, non-binary groups. You can have whatever
Ever.
kind of
Yeah.
group
Yeah.
that you would like to come together. People that are survivors of cancer, people that are survivors of that are struggling with their weight, people that are whatever it is. People can
And one of the chapters focuses on courage. Why did you choose that?
courage the in the journal book.
Yes.
Oh yeah, courage in your joke book. Because it takes courage for you to move forward. It takes courage to change. Whenever anybody would walk into a group, no matter where it is, it takes courage for you to be there. You've got to say, I'm going to walk through my fear. I'm going to walk through my anxiety. I'm going to walk through these messages that I have received that says no. I'm going to say yes because I need to do this for me.
Mhm.
And so it does take courage for you to change. Um, and it takes courage for you to hold fast to your principles, to your beliefs about what you need to do to move forward. So yeah, this is all, and the essence of all of this is love. The essence of the creator, in my understanding, is love.
Is that what
And
you want people to take away from this?
it is. It is that the essence of all of this is love, because love is our highest vibration. There is no higher vibration than love, and that is the essence of the creator. And when you think about the grace and the mercy of just our existence on a day-to-day basis, and that's why I'm saying is that to go past the loss is an act of love. And once we can step back and think about what this person gave us or what this situation gave us as much as it could give us. And that was our gift. And so it's okay for you to move forward and have another experience.
Katurah A. Bryant, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this magnificent body of work with us. And like you said, it's not necessarily for clinicians,
No, it's not.
it's for the everyday person, the Zola experience. All right.
Yes.
Katurah lives here in New Haven. She's a native of Nashville, Tennessee. She is the published author, creator, and founder of the Zola Experience, a journey of recovery from loss. She has contributed to the fields of health, wellness, and recovery with credentials as a licensed marriage and family therapist, registered nurse, and licensed addictions specialist with over 30 years of experience. Thank you so much for coming on the collective,
Thank
sharing your
you.
wealth of knowledge, and hopefully we'll see how you feel in a few years, whether you want to come back and do that third book.
Well, actually, I have it kind of in my head. I might be here next year this time. It's just
With
like,
a third book.
right, because last year I press published on the first book in October, and
Wow.
God
So it's
willing,
been a year.
it's been a year, and God willing, will press publish on this It will be published soon and very soon. And I got my official copyright documents for the first book, and that was
Nice.
big. I was so
Nice.
excited about that. But
That's nice.
I just say, if you're interested in becoming a Zola ambassador, please contact me at Katurah, Katurah, at globalalchemygroup.com or thezolaexperience@gmail.com.
And do you have a website or
Absolutely.
Facebook page or?
Yes, I have a Facebook page, Katurah A. Bryant. Please visit our website. It is fun. It has stuff for you to do. You can contact us. There's information about the training for Zola ambassadors as well as Zola healing circles. Just go to the www.thezolaexperience.com.
Thank you, Katurah.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Michelle.
your time and energy.
Thank you,
so
my
much.
Thank you.
And this has been The Collective on WSME DB, SM Enlightenment Radio. Positivity is everything.
Yes.
Have a good night.
Peace.